I've been like consulting with mostly like Series A to Series C companies this year, helping them figure this stuff out. I would say, first of all, like 9 out of 10 things I build as it relates to AI don't work. Maybe more than 90% actually, like honestly.
Yeah, it's crazy now. I mean, we're working with some clients that'll come inbound for recruiting and they'll be like, we are doing 6 mil run rate and we haven't had any salespeople. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, that's like insane. Seeing a bites to enterprise deals, like 100K plus clips.
Shake the rattle, like make noise. Nobody knows who the hell you are at pre-seed seed. Even Series A, a lot of people don't know who you are. And especially in this climate where it's like every day, like 50 companies are raising money. It's never been easier to build a company now. Now you can vibe code and stuff like that.
Gen Z calls it climbing up Cringe mountain. And it's true, right? When you're first starting out, it's like, I'm putting myself in the arena. And then they're like, oh my God, who really, at the end of the day, nobody really cares. And the people who end up resonating with are the ones that come inbound, and that's all that matters. And it's what you've said this before, Brendan. It's like it ends up returning the fund. And you're like, wow, this actually is starting to work a little bit.
Thanks for tuning in to the Vibe Scaling podcast. My name is Chris Balestris, partner at Vibe Scaling. We're a go-to-market advisory, recruiting, investing, and media firm, helping seed through Series D companies grow. Vibe Scaling podcast is an intersection of go-to-market, AI, and startup topics where we interview the top go-to-market leaders at AI and SaaS companies. Hope you enjoy it.
All right, we are live at the weekly This Week in GTM podcast. And just to give those a little bit of a primer of what this is, differs from our normal Vibe Scaling podcast, which will be weekly, interviewing go-to-market leaders, mainly VPs of sales and CROs at AI natives for now for season 1. But, if you're chronically, terminally online, especially Twitter, like a lot of us are, we are constantly tweeting each other different stuff of what's going on during the week. And we thought we'd just get on it in like a TBPN, My First Million sort of style. So Cailen and I will be on this weekly, and then we get to bring on our buddies like Brendan Short over here from The Signal to opine on some of these tweets as well as we were talking about them this week. But for those that don't know Brendan, I'll kick it off to you of just like a quick intro of your background and why don't you tell the audience?
Sure, sounds good. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I've been in B2B SaaS for over a decade, started as an SDR before as a term. Started a couple of companies in the sales tech space, did a stint at Zoom Video doing ops enablement for the BDR org, and then most recently was at Apollo running their auto SDR function. And now I'm consulting and writing a newsletter called The Signal. And kind of the premise of that is like exploring the future go-to-market playbook. I think that we are in my career, I've never seen anything kind of like AI changing things. And I love it. I'm like incredibly energized by this moment in time because there's no playbook and we get to like figure it out in real time all together. So that's why I like jamming with guys like you to be like, what is happening? What is real? What is like nonsense versus actually shipped in production and getting results? So stoked to dig into a bunch of these topics with you guys today.
Yeah, totally. Same here. I know you're going to have some really good POV and some takes on this. The style and what we want this to be is just sharing tweets that have come up during the week, and we'll just start firing that up now. So I think, there's a few podcasts. I guess, Brendan, like, what are the podcasts that you're listening to every week? Like, for me, it's obviously like TBPN. I like Lenny's newsletter when it's sales-related stuff. I like 20 VC, 20 sales when it's sales-related stuff. What are some other ones that are hitting your radar?
I don't listen to a ton of like GTM podcasts, to be honest. A little bit, but maybe Top Line some. Yeah, maybe Lenny if it's relevant. Actually, I listen to Lenny even if it's like not necessarily sales related. I've definitely been going down the TBPN rabbit hole. I think their content is very interesting for a bunch of different reasons. I used to listen to All In. I honestly don't really listen to it too much anymore, but that's like more broadly tech. Those are sort of like the go-tos. I listen to like Founders by David Senra, if you know those guys, Acquired, 100%. If you know those guys. But like, less GTM focused. I think there's actually a void for what it's worth. I don't want to go down too much of a rabbit hole, but there's a void that I'm hoping you guys fill. I'm excited to listen to you every week.
That's part of the reason why we're doing it. And Lenny's is great. And that's the first one that we'll share. So let me fire that up on my screen. I like how he will have on different sales advisors or different sales leaders. So this first one from this last week is Jeanne DeWitt Grosser, who I've been keeping tabs of for quite a bit now. She was like the founding sales leader at Stripe, roughly around 2015. And then now she is it says chief business officer, but very much a deep sales background. She was at Google for a while. She was at Stripe and then now leading Vercel's team. which is, incredible product and great design, great taste that they have. I thought there were some really interesting points here. I'm happy to dive into a couple of takes here of like what she said. But Brendan, maybe if you or Cailen, if you want to kick it off, was there anything that like came to mind for you all that stood out from this episode?
I'm going to defer to Brendan here because he thinks about this 24/7.
I like the thing that stands out obviously to me is like a single GTM engineer building, at Vercel reduced a 10-person sales team to 1 in just 6 weeks. We could talk about that. I think it's really interesting. I think like there's like sort of a new way of doing things. I've been like consulting with mostly like Series A to Series C companies this year, helping them figure this stuff out. I would say, first of all, like 9 out of 10 things I build as it relates to AI don't work. Maybe more than 90% actually, like honestly. So by no means do I have it all figured out. I don't think anybody really does. Again, like I think we're all trying to figure this out together. I do think that there's like little glimmers of things that are starting to work. And I do think that in certain scenarios, like you can reduce a bunch of headcount and replace it with automation and agentic workflows. The team at Vercel open sourced this. I looked at it. You can look at what they actually built. They built it on V0, of course. It's not incredibly complex what the AI SDR does. And I think the other like nuance here is like Jason Lemkin talks about his AI BDR, which I love Jason Lemkin. I consume a lot of his content. I should have shouted him out. I think he's like very AI pilled, as am I. So I can't get enough Jason Lemkin. But he's selling event sponsors, and actually, no, he's selling event tickets. It's like, that's a very different thing than trying to AI SDR a 100K ACV product. It's super different, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was at Apollo, it's like, yeah, we were doing auto SDR stuff, but we're selling 5K, 10K, maybe 20K ACV deals. That's totally fair game to automate and use AI, at least today. If you're doing $500,000 deals and you have 30 target accounts, are you going to send a bunch of AI generated emails to those 30 target accounts? Like, of course not. You are going to set up a dinner and you are going to go in person and you are going to go eat a steak with them and golf with them and do the like classic sales stuff. So I think there's more nuance to it than like the viral post that this was on Twitter, where it's like, oh my gosh, Vercel, one of the best companies in the world, like is AIing away their SDRs. Like, I think you have to think through like, what is your go-to-market motion and what is specifically your ACV and number of target accounts. And that is actually the criteria of whether or not this is actually going to be a good motion for you.
Yeah. Piggybacking off that, Brendan. So if you listen to the Top Line podcast from this last week, Jason Lemkin is defining Outbound in his small average deal cycle, which is like event-driven sponsors, people that have already either sponsored before or have heard of the company before. That to me is not outbound. And maybe it's me having PTSD from joining sales organizations that gave me zero inbound. But I define outbound as they've never heard of us and really aren't raising their hand at all. It's like super cold. So I think the way that he's kind of like framing it is like it's technically outbound, but it's like for a lot of people in enterprise sales, the way that we define it, it could be a little bit, I guess, misleading if we're trying to draw the similar like equivalencies of how it might work up market. Cailen, there's one thing that I would love for you to opine on this. So number 4, I think Jian has got literally one of the best like story careers in sales, Google, Stripe, and then now at Vercel. I thought it was interesting to ask her opinion on like, when should a founder hire their first salesperson? She's really never been in those shoes before. So I'm curious as to like how she came to like wait until 1 million. This has been though, the sort of response here. Hey, at 1 million, you should hire it. But like, there's definitely some nuance that we see at VibeScale. And Cailen, how would you say is like, when's the chasm in which you hire your first salesperson?
Totally. Chris, maybe you want to bring up the screenshot I sent you from, we've given a couple talks at VC firms about like going 0 to 10 GTM. You just take a look at the screenshot I sent, a good visual aid here. I think her and I kind of align on this. I'm a little bit more, I think in the AI native world we're living in now, where you see, we have a lot of purview over across, hundreds of companies. And I'm seeing a lot more of a trend of companies getting to 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 5. 100% founder led before they even hire a salesperson. Again, I think it's all very situational. Do you have PLG? Are you self-serve? How much of that is, what's the ACVs? I think similar to what Brendan said on the BDR pipeline, AI SDR stuff. It's same situation. I think it really depends on how complex your sales process is. What my fundamental belief these days, or at least if I were to give you generic advice, which I try to not give, is after 1.5 million is my new number. And I keep updating this deck every 6 months because I keep meeting just companies that kind of blow my mind in terms of their efficiency and ability to do a lot with very little headcount. Specifically, there's this next generation of founders. But yeah, usually my playbook is get up to 1.5 million, but less about the number, more about the repeatability. And I think she did talk about this as well, is can you show that you can acquire 100, 200, 300 customers with the same playbook? It's kind of templatized. You have it all codified. You can and you get enough conviction where I'm spending 20% of my time as a founder on this and I close 1.5 million. What could I do if I had a full-time person spending 100% of their time on this? And so usually I pitch founders more so it's important to find the repeatability, but at least, there's some sort of threshold that you have to be doing some meaningful revenue. You can't be doing repeatable playbook at 100K ARR. So that's my general thought process there. The other piece is I think the point she's trying to make is never outsource your sales. The founder is the best salesperson. Don't outsource until you're oh man, this is kind of just repetitive. And I think I can grow much faster by handing it off. And the product is in GA ready, not that buggy, reliable. Customers love it. I'm ready to move on to growing top of funnel and going on the PR tour and doing podcast stuff that I can build awareness for my brand. So that's my essentially my POV here. And then this is kind of the vibe scaling playbook of how we think about the different milestones and the sequence of how you hire people and when you hire people. But again, it's very case by case. It depends on the company. It depends on the industry. Are you vertical SaaS? It might be very different. And I need to update this. I have 4x quota OT multiples. It actually needs to be higher than that. I haven't updated this deck in 6 months. So yeah, anyways, that's my general thought process on that particular topic.
Yeah, interesting. So yeah, it's crazy now. I mean, we're working with some clients that'll come inbound for recruiting and they'll be like, we are doing 6 mil run rate and we haven't had any salespeople. I'm like, are you kidding me? That's insane. And seeing a bites to enterprise deals, 100K plus clips. So I thought some other things before we move on to the next tweet was, this whole concept of sales teams should be indistinguishable from product managers, at least for the first 10 minutes. Now, very unique to Stripe selling an API to a more technical buyer. But I do respect how Stripe always hired. It was former bankers, consultants, people that just didn't come off salesy. And I always say the best proxy to understand if somebody's salesy or not, if you don't know anything else about them, have they sold to developers or product managers? Because you literally need to be less salesy to be able to have that conversation with them. So I thought there were some really great learnings here. So for those I would definitely check it out.
I have a quick input there, actually. I think Dropbox came a little bit before Stripe, maybe 1 to 2 years before Stripe. We had the exact same, outlook on how to build the GTM org. Which was, we were engineering led as a company. When I joined the company, I think we were 16 MIT Core 6 engineers and myself. And the big thing for them is they wanted to maintain the engineering culture forever, essentially. And so one of the big things we did is we had to adapt. I went through a bunch of interviews and getting people on site to end up getting rejected by the CTO or someone else during the process. And the big calibration and reinforcement we did to adjust the process was, let's try to find people who don't feel or sound salesy. And we actually had the same outlook. It was if you just walked into the lunchroom and everyone's eating lunch, just pre-pandemic when everyone was in office, the goal was, if you point to any random person, you would not know if they're an engineer or a salesperson. But equally.
Okay. So you were saying something similar, because I was just going to push you back and say, there's too much fluff in that they're salesy or not. It's a vibe. It's subjective. Obviously, if somebody's used car salesman vibe, they're too salesy, or they hey, what if we give you a discount? There's certain things. What are other things that people do or say that's hey, this person's kind of being salesy?
Yeah, I mean, the classic walk in, start talking about sports and a bunch of broy topics.
You say that
I mean, I think it's
damn. I guess I come off salesy then, because I always bring it up. Sometimes if I see somebody have a football behind them, I'm oh man, my Jets suck, don't they?
One thing we were really allergic to people who walked in VC vests. So thank God none of us are wearing one of those on this call.
I don't know if you're doing all this to actually as a bit or a joke, or if you genuinely are. Maybe I'm just salesy. It's just literally every podcast app we've done, I've had a vest on. So I guess it's just
That's two strikes. That's two strikes.
Yeah.
We like people who look like Brendan, rocking the hoodie, rolling in, like, you know, that
hasn't shaved in a few weeks.
Yeah. It shows you're just grinding. You don't have time to shave, you know.
That's right.
Dude, the great lock-in. Some people stopped at Thanksgiving. Brendan's going right through to Christmas and New Year's. So dude, that's how it is right now.
So keep me warm here in Austin. Yeah, I would also add, like, this is like maybe cliche, but I think it's really true, is like they need to be consultative, and like they actually need to be a guide. I found this with PLG companies. Like a lot of the last few years, I've been really deep in the product-led sales space. And it's definitely true with product-led sales people, where it's like they're already using the product. Maybe they've been using the product for 6 months. Okay, so you're talking to Cursor. They're a free customer. They've got 50 engineers using Cursor, maybe, or maybe they're paying with their credit cards. You're not selling them. They've been using the product. Right. Frankly, they probably know how to use the product better than you do, because you're a salesperson and you can't code. Okay, so how does that person add value in a conversation to the engineering leader at Cursor? You have to actually be really good at discovery. You have to be really curious, and you have to be like a Sherpa, is how I describe it. And you have to guide them through, like, here's how to use the product. And the unique thing I think that salespeople have in the example of Cursor is like, I talk to engineering leaders every day, just like you. They don't have that luxury, and here's how I've seen the best engineering teams deploy Cursor. There are unique things, I think, and ways that you can add value as a seller that is like not pitching, not even showing the product necessarily. It's literally guiding them on how they can get the most value out of your product, and frankly, how they can hit their OKR, which, oh, by the way, hopefully Cursor, our product, can help you hit your OKR. And so I think that's like, to me, there is sort of a vibe, but it's more of like, am I curious? Am I consultative? Am I asking questions? Am I doing deep discovery? Am I able to problem solve in real time? As opposed to like, I'm going to go out for golf and a steak dinner after and pitch and like schmooze them with my like personality. It's like, I actually am a problem solver, which is to the point of the podcast. Like that's what good product people do. That's what good founders do, is they do good discovery and they actually figure out how to solve problems in collaboration with the prospect.
Totally. And I think the one other thing to add on to that too is that showing that you're their liaison internally, where you're willing to go above and beyond when shit hits the fan. Bugs, data breach, product roadmap stuff. They're like, oh man, I love your product, but I wish you had, you know, X and Y that X competitor has. You go and be like, let me go talk to the product team, and at least like put it on their radar so they feel heard, right? I think it's another big piece, because they want to feel like you're going to be a partner to them, less so like you're just trying to you're trying to get a transactional deal through so you make some commission. I think Brendan hit all the high water points in my opinion on that.
Yeah, I agree with that. The one thing, Brendan, you said there is like, okay, well, when people say consultative, like, what does that even mean? I love the phrase, hey, this is typically like, it's this whole vibe that you want them to realize, I speak to a lot of people just like you, and other people's ears perk up when they say, okay, interesting. Let me see where I'm calibrated based on how they're thinking about probably a similar problem. And I think that it goes based on, like, the GM was saying this in her thing, is like, most customers buy to avoid risk, not to gain opportunity. The only way for you to show the gap in potential risk in that initial call and build rapport is to say, other customers are thinking it like this. All of a sudden, somebody feels like they're dipping below their status line. Actually, we did this in the Raf Parker interview of like human psychology and like prospect theory. And that is when people then say, okay, interesting. How do I get back to the status line, right? It's just like human behavior. Oh, you buy our product sort of thing. And that's how you can actually bridge it without being salesy a little. So anyway, some really good,
I was gonna say, I have a pretty strong point of view on this, and I'm curious to get your guys' take, which is like, I think there's only like really 4 reasons people buy a product. Number 1, you help them make more money. Number 2, you help them get promoted. Number 3, you save them money. Number 4, you keep them off the front page of the New York Times. And number 4 specifically applies to cybersecurity companies. Obviously it applies to other companies too, but like those are the 4 underlying reasons I feel like someone really buys a product.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. So, all right, moving on to our next tweet. So this right here, Chris Pizarki. Who is Chris Pizarki, actually? Let's like just pull up his background.
He's Crust Data.
Yeah. Okay, so and what are they? They're like an API for LinkedIn data.
I think they have a ton of like LinkedIn contact data. I know a lot of product sales tech, recruiting tech use them as a data layer infrastructure to power their products. So
got it. Okay, makes sense. So Chris, YC winner 24 or whatever, he said every time I'm at a YC event, so post when he graduated, he gets asked how to do go to market. Yeah, the answer is always the same here. So it's like, okay, build your lead list. Hey, don't use AI to do the outbound. It's just going to sound average. Check out your deliverability metrics for email. Make sure you're using LinkedIn. You're connecting with your ICP, and you're maxing those out every week. You're posting, getting those impressions up, and investing in SEO. I think like Brendan, you and I were texting about this a little bit, and we're actually doing an article on the number one play that we're seeing in the seed companies that like don't have product market fit, have like 7 customers, is you connect with your ICPs, you max those out every week. You're consistently posting. Yes, that's like a cherry on top. But the second thing is then you can just message like 50 people a day in LinkedIn once you're connected with them, and you pretty much ask for feedback. And we saw this as a way to like brute force just a bunch of meetings that ended up leading to pretty qualified pipeline. But I don't know, Brendan, I know you had some takes on this of like this tweet, and would love to get just your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on this. I'll try to keep it as succinct as possible. I think the thing that so a couple things. One, anecdotally, anyway, when I was running my last company, Groundswell, which is a couple years ago now, I was like, it was for product-led sales folks. Those people are all on LinkedIn. I was also doing outbound. I completely stopped doing outbound and just doubled down on LinkedIn content. And because I could just very like obviously tell that doing content was way better. And like the VP of Slack came inbound, VP of sales, the VP of RevOps at Notion, like anyone that I like, these crazy, all of my like tier 1 accounts were coming inbound to me off of LinkedIn saying, hey, we're looking at product-led sales solutions. I've been, looking at your content for 6 months, would love to chat. At the time, we had raised about 1.6 million. Our competitors had raised literally $50 million. Like I shouldn't have been in those conversations. The only reason why I was is because I was creating content and like what I call building trust at scale. They were able to see my unique point of view or my point of view in the world. And if it aligned with them, they're like, okay, cool. Maybe their product has that taste built into it. I think this is like, I don't know. I like can't be more confident in this reality. And like, I want to figure out how to make money off the back of this belief, because like, this is going to be increasingly more true in the AI era. In the era of AI slop, like people with good, unique points of view are going to rise up even more outside of like the slop filled, feeds that most people are going to be consuming from. And so like, I just wouldn't have gotten, if I had cold emailed the VP of RevOps at Notion, like they wouldn't have taken a meeting with me. I just know that. But they came inbound because of this content strategy. And so I think this is especially true at the early stage. I don't know exactly how much it scales like beyond Series C, like, I don't know. But like, I don't know, Sam Altman like owns his own audience and has like an incredibly big Twitter following and can go on a podcast and get millions of views. Like, that, I think that actually is sort of the same thing at scale. And so I think, you look at like the Stripe guys and they started a podcast, Cheeky Pint, which also I listen to. Like there's a reason all these people are doing like media and going direct to the audience. And so I think maybe it does scale, but like certainly in the early stage, you look at like, there's lots of examples like this, at least in the go-to-market tech space. Adam Robinson is obviously an example. Todd at Champify, the Unify guys. We did this early days at Apollo, or like a few years ago when I was at Apollo, and like not as much founders, but actually employees. And so it's just like sort of, again, if your people are on LinkedIn or if your people are on Twitter, like your people being your prospects, like it's sort of just like the modern marketing playbook in my mind.
Totally. Completely agree with everything that you had said. And we're seeing this. I mean, not only is it a cheat code just to like, you start all of your outbound efforts with a LinkedIn first approach. Make sure you're maximizing that out, maxing that out, and then go to email. If you like, hey, I want to go after this list of 10,000 people, more so for a thoughtful ad impression than it is actually like, hey, I'm expecting to book a meeting from this. I think you wrote about this that you use that exact wording, Brendan, in one of your articles. Completely agree with that. Like, use email for like, hey, we exist. And that's happened to me before. I've been in a conference before when I used to work at past companies, and they'd be like, hey, do you guys do what this company does? And they'd pull up an email from one of our competitors that they never answered, but they knew that it existed. They were not in market at that time, but they now knew that we were in market because we were at the conference. But probably for a lot cheaper, I could have just sent a decently thoughtful email at scale. Even though it wouldn't have led to a meeting, it would have led to attention. And I think it goes back to like, I'm starting to get a lot of inbound now from our recruiting practice because of a lot of stuff I'm posting about. So people will agree with my view on sales. I'm sure there's plenty of people that friggin' hate my posts, but there's like a small subset that are like, hey, I actually kind of agree with that. I can't say it myself, or it was in my brain and you're actually writing it. I actually have gotten people to say that. And that's why they end up taking a meeting. And like in the recruiting game, it is an intention game. They're getting like 10 messages a day, right? What is it that's actually going to cut through the noise when Cailen and I do a little bit of light outbound for something that might be a good fit? It's like, hey, I want to like actually chat with this person. And yeah, it's been super effective. But I think that this is a really good 80-20 for doubling down on LinkedIn, for connecting with your ICP. And then this sort of attention is all you need sort of structure is really helpful. But Cailen, yeah, before we move on, if you have any thoughts on this, would be curious.
Yeah, I think broadly, this is one of the tactical, strategic things we push a lot of early stage founders do, whether it's pre-seed, seed. The goal is shake the rattle, like make noise. Nobody knows who the hell you are at pre-seed, seed. Even Series A, a lot of people don't know who you are. And especially in this climate where it's like every day, like 50 companies are raising money. It's never been easier to build a company now. Now you can vibe code and stuff like that. So you just got to make a lot of noise very early on. To Brendan's anecdote he gave about Groundswell, I think the big thing too is like, if people are following you and you have a strong point of view, I think it's like people start to build trust in your opinion. And they want to come to you because they're like, this guy's a de facto expert in the space. And I want to make sure I'm thinking about things the right way. Like whenever I see you, Brendan, you have a take, I always read it because I'm like, oh, this would be useful. I could probably borrow some of this stuff to use with my portfolio companies. Because I know that, I think the big thing is you're well researched. And because I know you're well researched, 100%. I know you've like exhausted everything and you've come to the singular view on what's actually working. And so that's how I read your stuff and I like your stuff and I recommend your stuff. Sometimes I take credit for it. Hopefully you're fine with that. I think that's one piece. The other piece I think he's just very much missing that I think is even more important than all of this, because I think his broader thing is like, how do you do GTM? Network-led growth, man.
100%. I knew you were going to say that. Yeah.
Network-led growth, like your investors, your advisors, you bring in, like here at VibeScaling, like a bunch of our portfolio companies, we have big networks collectively across all 5 of us here at VibeScaling. We make tons of customer intros. You saw my tweet, my post yesterday about introducing Metronome to their first customer back in 2018. And that like literally what de-risked them because that was a late stage company and they ended up closing a bunch of other lookalikes. And a lot of times I've seen emails that people reply back to for the intro I made to the founder, and the founder shares their screen. They're like, look why this guy took this meeting. And the first line is, I'm taking this meeting because I really like trust Cailen and his opinion. And so the fact that he's like pushing me to take this meeting, I'll take it. And that turned into actually a customer. And so it's like, I feel like you just got to get their attention. We're in the attention economy now. So LinkedIn, obviously network, etc.
Yeah, I would say like I'm writing a piece right now, which is attention is a scarce resource. I think just like to triple down on this, I think that's like, again, going to become increasingly true in the AI era. And also like I think about Marty at Pylon does a good job with content.
He's the best. He's literally like the best at this.
He's the guy. He's the guy.
Yeah, he's the GOAT.
He's great. Yeah. He's great. And I've talked to a lot of founders, obviously I'm not going to mention names, but I'm like, man, you got to be on LinkedIn. He's like, I don't know, LinkedIn's not for me. And I'm like, okay, no problem. Like you could post from your company page, but like I literally will never read that post. And you are going to get 90% less views on your like company post. And like I think what is the expression? Like everything good is on the other side of cringe. Like it is sort of cringy to post on LinkedIn. Like my in real life friends like don't exactly know that I post on LinkedIn every day. But like it works. And one more thing is like I think the phrase is you aren't advertising to a standing army, you're advertising to a moving parade, something like that.
That's a good analogy.
Talks about. It's like, you just I should do this. I should take my own lesson. It's like, there's a few really good ideas that I've come up with, signal-based selling, micro campaigns, maybe one other. Like, instead of trying to come up with these new ideas, I should probably just revisit like the bangers and just like like go over and over and over those because
it's like it's like bell buttons coming into fashion. What's old is new, and you just there's only a finite amount of things you can do to get in touch with someone. It's like people are like, what's that like one thing everyone's doing? I'm like, I don't know, send a messenger bird. Like, you're not saying a messenger bird?
Yeah.
There's just like what's old is new. Just try a bunch of things, experiment. But yeah, that analogy you just gave, Brandon, like, yeah, it's a moving parade. People's attention spans are very short. You just got to continue to compound their attention over time. They may not like engage on the first one, but you're showing them like they're seeing you on Instagram. I have a lot of founders who are doing Instagram stuff now. I see a lot of founders doing TikTok stuff. I see founders posting on LinkedIn, but the problem is it's effort. People don't want to put in the effort, right? And you have to do it day in, day out, 7 days a week with content. Brendan, you know about this. It's a grind. Chris loves
it's a lot of effort. It's a lot of effort. I love it. I think that is, by the way, I think that is important to call out. You do have to love it.
Yeah, if you don't like it, then
I love the craft of writing. I write for myself way more than I write to publish. And like, I love writing is thinking. And so I love writing. Actually, like, podcasts are fine. Like, this is fun. It's fun to jam with you guys, but like, I don't have a podcast. Maybe I will, but like the written form I love. And so I think the other thing is like, if you're like a founder or a go-to-market leader listening to this, like, what is the format that you feel comfortable in and like? And maybe it's TikTok style stuff, a little short form, maybe it's long form video, maybe it's written, maybe it's blog, maybe it's LinkedIn. But like, you don't have to do all of it, but I would pick one or two channels or one or two mediums and like, what is the thing that you enjoy doing, and just go hard on that. It's going to compound. That's exactly right.
A couple of things. Gen Z calls it climbing up Cringe Mountain. And it's true, right? When you're first starting out, it's like, I'm putting myself in the arena. And then they're like, oh my God, at the end of the day, nobody really cares. And the people who end up resonating with are the ones that come inbound, and that's all that matters. And it's what you've said this before, Brendan. It's like, it ends up returning the fund. And you're like, wow, this actually is starting to work a little bit. Marty is the GOAT at this. Marty, for those that don't know, is CEO of Pylon, portfolio company of Vibe Scaling. And, he'll post about how he gained 40 pounds eating factor meals. Has literally nothing to do with customer support B2B software, but people just like his shit. And then they come inbound, and Pylon is absolutely ripping right now, because of it. So, yeah, dude, it's this whole concept still of the attention factor.
Attention and trust. Attention and trust.
Yeah, they're like, this guy's being vulnerable. Like, now Marty's like skinny and ripped as hell. So it's like funny how it's like, but it's, I don't know. I always remember that one post.
I'll tell you guys one really funny anecdote. Since I've been working with Pylon since there were 3 guys in an apartment. Marty, I had a founder who like came to me, and he was asking me about this particular topic, like, how do we get attention? How do we get like awareness on our brand? I was like, oh, do you know, like, here's a couple examples of people who are really good. I sent him Marty. I sent him Amir at Hockey Stack, who I think is also really great. I sent him Pranav at Paramark, who's really good, but he's heavy video, like long form video stuff, versus written. And this one guy was like, oh yeah, I know Marty. He goes, I think we're going to buy Pylon. I was like, oh, really? Like, have you looked at the other vendors? He goes, no, like, I just feel like I've seen him everywhere, and I don't even know I didn't really know what they do, but I feel like I got to buy the product. Just I see him everywhere, and I figured everyone uses them. So
I wonder if there's a concept, if there's like a human, like, not that person's famous, but in the same way that you want to meet an actor or somebody that you've seen on TV, and you're like, oh, I've seen you on TV, like, and there's automatically this sort of like, I gotta meet you. I feel like it's been a one-way relationship, and we need to make sure that doesn't happen anymore. My name's Chris. Really good to meet you. Like, there has to be something, because I get that all the time when they're like, hey man, been loving your posts. It's great to meet. And it's like crazy to me. Not that it's a famous thing, but it's the same thing of like, oh, I finally met you. Like, you've been meeting me. It's just like, the other side hasn't been reciprocated yet. So.
Yeah. I'll just say, I see, Chris, you're not that far behind Taylor Swift in terms of popularity, at least in business circles.
Hey, shavings make a pile, as they say. You know what? I'm just going to keep cracking at it every week, and eventually, in the B2B SaaS space, hopefully I can, become somebody. So.
One more thing I'd say is, like, I think there's more benefits than just like getting deals and getting pipeline from this. I think it's it's like a superpower for recruiting, and it's especially in the early stages, a superpower for product feedback and like message market fit. So like, and I still do this, and I'm like just trying to get subscribers on a newsletter. I don't even have a product to sell, but it's like, I put out maybe a few posts a week on LinkedIn, and I can look back. Let's say I post 5 times on LinkedIn. One post is going to do really well. And I'm like, okay, whatever I still can't predict what post is going to do well or not. That one post that does well, it's like, okay, that idea or maybe that framing really resonated for some reason. That's like incredibly valuable at the early stage, because that's how you're going to figure out what is the tagline for your website, what is the hook in your cold emails, what are the talking points when you're demoing the product, what are you going to put in your investor slide deck, how do you describe yourself, and even like comments. I find a lot of value in comments of like what I hear people regurgitating. When I first started talking about signal-based selling, actually I first said signal-based prospecting, and then I heard people saying signal-based selling, which is like, whatever, it's alliteration, it's just like kind of catchier, and people hitting me up being like, tell me more about signal-based selling. It's like, okay, maybe there's something, there's a thread to pull on there. And I think that's like the other just really big benefit of doing content on social media as a founder. And of course you want pipeline, that's like the main goal. But I think there are these like other side benefits, if you will, that are like almost as equally valuable as like booking meetings and revenue from it.
You said something there that I wrote a note down. You said it's good for recruiting. Where we see this to be great in recruiting is for VPs of sales having a brand. It actually cannibalizes our business. So I hope too many VPs of sales don't do this, but some do. I think Kyle Norton is somebody who we're eventually going to have on the Vibe Scaling podcast. We're in some email threads right now. He does this really well. He even says this, like, I post as a recruiting mechanism. Now, the reason why that's super important, other than just general awareness, is because there's actually a lot of VPs of sales that people don't want to work for, but they don't find that out until once they start working for them when it's too late. So when you can start to get inside the brain of somebody who's going to be dictating your career of how they think through decisions, super important. An example of this is we just had Jack Ashy on yesterday on our podcast live in New York. We were talking about quota attainment and why it was important. And he was like, it's super important for me, for my reps to be winning. And he's like, and quota attainment has to be at like 80%. I want people to be making money. And it's like, some sales leaders don't care about that. They're like, shoot for the moon, and if you land amongst the stars, that's great. Well, you need your reps to be able to charge the hill. And I want to know that. It's actually questions that I wish I would have asked the person I was joining that I didn't. When I joined a dog of a sales organization, I was at 5% attainment. It's like, why didn't that sales leader push back? Now, some of these cases, they can't push back. It's not in their control. But if you at least know that that's important to that person, it's at least directionally aligned with what I want to make sure that the person with the hands, has decision on my career is thinking about. So anyway, that's my point on the recruiting piece.
Totally. So, yeah, I was just catching up with Kyle about this week. Actually, we're writing a post, and
nice.
He's the GOAT. He's the GOAT. And he said like it's like when he was at Owner early days, like people thought they were a lot bigger because of they were just everywhere because he was posting everywhere. The last thing I'll say on this is I call this like a personal inbound machine. I think like when you put your ideas out there in the world as a founder or a leader, go-to-market leader, you're going to attract people that like align with your like values and even business values and how you think about the world. Like Chris, you and I have talked a little bit about like sales philosophy and like different, what is go-to-market? Maybe a good segue. Like what does go-to-market mean?
Totally.
And it's like there's kind of this old school camp, and now there's like sort of this emerging new school camp. But by talking about that publicly, you're then actually really able to attract the people that align with your values on something. So then you don't have to interview 10 people that are not a fit. It's like all 10 of these people came inbound to me. All 10 of them already align with me and my values because they've been consuming my content. And now like, okay, great. I'm like way closer to making the best hires possible. And like, it's at scale. Like I'm doing this at scale because I'm just posting once and like lots and lots of people are seeing it. I don't have to have these 30-minute intro discovery calls with potential hires.
Totally. Kyle actually does this really well too, because I was listening to him. He does a video that he sends and just like, hey, before you interview, here's where all the bodies are buried and the skeletons in our closet at Owner. That's and cool. He's like, I get like actually 50% of people being like, hey, thanks, but no thanks. And he's like, thank God. And it's so true. It's like, it's the same thing with like a sales deck. Cailen, I don't know if you ever had this, but I used to do this sometimes where it was like, hey, here are 5 reasons why or 3 reasons why companies choose not to work with us. And if that resonates with you, then I just want to save both of our times. And it kind of throws prospects off a little bit because they're like, wait, time out. You should be wanting to make any sale. And it's like, no. Get rid of that Grant Cardone shit. Like I care about my time, and I want to qualify that because I don't want I don't want to go down. Yeah. I want to get to a yes or no as fast as possible. So yeah. But Brendan, on that note, like, I mean, we could pull on the thread of like what go-to-market is, and like this whole, like, we talked about this, Cailen, in our last episode of just your boy Alex Kramer saying like, oh, the rebrand, it was sales rep to account executive. I'm an executive accounts, and we ran with that for 20 years. And then now it's like, well, AE's, now that's tired, man. Let's go to like this GTM. Ooh, it sounds kind of sexy, right? And to me, like in the early stage, I think if you're at Salesforce, and I can call my baby ugly, I worked there for 4.5 years. If you call yourself GTM at Salesforce, it's kind of fugazi, right? Because you're like probably an AE, in just running a territory in Michigan or something. Nothing wrong with that. It's just like that's what your job is. In the early stage, let's say founding AE or you're the sixth AE at Decagon, I think GTM is actually pretty relevant. You're selling, you're bringing back product feedback to the product team. You're launching some marketing, you're helping with marketing campaign feedback, all of that. And that's why I think like people don't want to be just viewed as a sales rep. They want to be viewed as a strategic seller and builder. And that is what I think embodies this new kind of movement into what GTM is, but specifically for what is a typical sales rep that is measured on if they're closing business. Like, I actually think it's a really good rebranding for the profession. So curious your take on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we riffed on this hardcore, okay. I think last week. But yeah, my general thesis is like, people want to have a sexy title because it's status. They also want to impress people. That's kind of all it is. It's like no different than like when you come home and show your honor roll certificate, right? It's like, look, I got the honor roll, or I'm summa cum laude or magna cum laude. It's like, just like it puts you in a certain status, and people kind of really generally directly chase that. I'm very curious to see what comes after GTM. Like, is there anything else we can do after that? I don't know. Curious to get some of your guys if we want to brainstorm here, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's like, people don't want to be known as the literal job they do. And so I think that's why that's been the evolution over time. And I think it will just continue to the end of time until either like the robots take over or whatever, where they don't care about that stuff. But yeah, that's my general 2 cents.
I would maybe add like a little bit of a different take as well. Is like my actual general idea of go to market is actually Jeannie did it. We texted a little bit about this, Chris, but then I listened to the podcast that on Lenny, and I thought did a good job describing what go to market means. Which is like, how are you taking your product to market, literally, and how do companies take their product to market? It's like sort of a marketing thing, sort of a sales thing, sort of a customer success thing, expansion and retention. It's also sort of a product thing, and like even pricing and packaging. And so when I think about go to market, I see that as like a layer above all of those individual departments. And like in my mind, there actually should be a chief GTM officer that is like maybe just the CRO. But in my mind, I think like there's still a CRO and a CMO. But there actually should be, maybe this is a COO. There's somebody that should own all of those departments, anything that's customer facing. And so it's sort of like a layer up. And so for startups, if you're a tiny company, you kind of are GTM because you're wearing all of those hats. But if you're a massive company like Salesforce, like you're in your lane, you're just an AE, you're a salesperson. It's okay to call yourself a salesperson.
Totally. Roles definitely get specialized at scale.
Right.
Is it Jean or Jeanne? I don't know. Actually, I haven't met her.
Oh, maybe it's Jeanne. I don't know.
I don't know.
Jeannie? Sorry, Jeannie.
I think it's Jeanne. I think it's Jeanne DeWitt.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What I would say, the POV from her is like, Vercel's kind of a mature company now. Stripe, even in 2015, was a pretty mature company. I have some friends that joined in 2010 or 2011, and that's when it was a real startup. I think that like the whole the tricky thing is that you need people to be role players, and I mean I think the thing like it's kind of like skews or makes everything amorphous when you call things GTM, because honestly there's like different roles, right? And GTM is all encompassing. I think what's happened now is you've had this like convergence where all AEs call themselves GTM, AEs and BDRs, less so CSMs. I never see CSM saying I'm GTM. My personal belief is that play your role, don't worry about the title, all that stuff. But, I think at the larger scale level, you're going to probably just see like a blanket title. And to Brendan, your point, I think usually the CRO is the one that should be interchangeably with this title you presented, right? It's like and most larger companies I meet, the CMO reports to the CRO or the VP of marketing reports to the CRO, because there should be one revenue owner. Otherwise you end up in this weird strife of sales and marketing alignment, because it's literally two different functions. They both report to the CEO, maybe, or COO. But that's why you run into this problem, is because there's not a singular owner. So that's why I'm actually I believe that there should be a single owner. It should be the CRO or CBO, whatever you want to call it. That person just owns GTM, but it's kind of all over the map, because sometimes you see COOs who own the revenue number, but the CEO also owns support. They also own G&A roles. I don't think there's
maybe that's why Jen moved to chief business officers, because she didn't want, that's like the CRO rebranding now. Chief sales officer went to chief revenue officer, and then now it's chief business officer. So maybe it'll be like business analyst. Maybe we should start getting a bunch of business analysts in like sales. It'll just be super corporate, but it'll be interesting.
Agent orchestrators.
Yeah, a lot of people wearing vests.
Dude, I love a good vest, man. Really, it's all right. Moving on to the last couple posts. So here, we'll like quickly touch on this one. So when I think through like Ramp, and it's like the origins of probably where Austin started with Unify, their sort of like growth engineering team. Brendan, I know you sent this. I got this sent by like 3 people who were like, "Oh, this is interesting." Them shutting down their OAT program, or outbound automation team. As you can see, I'm using Dia. I have to summarize on the right-hand side here, which will direct like how I want to frame this. But they shut this down, and the main reason that I thought was really interesting is because buyers are getting cold outbound fatigue. So they can't really 80-20 a lot of these common signals anymore. They felt that it was getting a little bit commoditized. But like, I'm trying to understand, what is it, Brendan? Maybe help me understand here. What is it that they're doing now, if not this exactly?
Yeah, I asked Gene in the thread. I said, so you're shutting down the outbound automation team, but continuing a growth engineering team. Can you explain how you differentiate the two?
Oh, wow. Yeah, here we go. You did ask. Yeah.
And nice. He replied, he said, OATs was a project under growth. Yeah, there you go. Focused to generalizing the benefits of OATs to not just SDRs, but to all of sales, which is much of a larger surface. When you scroll down, I asked him if that means just AEs or someone else. I don't know if he replied to that. No, he didn't.
Oh, wait.
Click on my question. Like... I guess I got a little stumped there with like, so, okay, instead of just doing outbound by SDRs, they're now going to do AE stuff, which is fair. Are they also doing CSM stuff or marketing stuff?
Yeah, my read on this, I kind of briefly looked at it. My guess is that they're probably taking the underlying, the nuts and bolts of what they're doing, and then they're like hyper personalizing them across every org, like probably BDR, SDR, AE, et cetera, CSM. Whereas I think it used to be a blanket org that just supported everybody. So I less so they're probably shutting it down, more so they're like embedding it and then fine tuning it by org. I knew about this because actually I met Austin and Connor, the founders of Unify, when they were still at Ramp, and I think Connor was at Meta, but I can't remember. But he wasn't at Ramp, and they were the guys who
he was at Scale. He was at
Scale. Austin was the original architect of this. Like when he first built Unify, it's all predicated on this. And he talked to me through it when he was like, they were both thinking about leaving. And we're like, hey, he's like, we essentially have built a POC of this at Ramp. And it works and it's great. And we're like so much more ahead of everybody else in terms of like the infrastructure. And he realized, oh man, every company could benefit from this. Like, let's build a commercialized product. And obviously they're doing really, really great. But it's a lot of like, a lot of it has just been like, kind of, they were ahead of the curve on the like GTM engineering stuff before everybody else, in my opinion.
Exactly. I think that's the thing is like, my take is like, you're basically like growth or GTM engineering, whatever you want to call it. What I think doing prospecting, like, okay, I'm going to hire my first GTM engineer. Okay, cool. Where are you going to start? Where are you going to point that resource in the first quarter of having them on? It's like probably prospecting, generating pipeline. I think that's a natural place to try to think about how do I embed AI and automation into my go-to-market engine. But then you quickly, and I ran into this when I was at Apollo, I was like, okay, cool, we can generate top of funnel, but like, what about expansion opportunities? What about churn prevention? Like we can definitely do automated stuff off the back of that data. I think about a GTM engineer who's helping AEs generating a deck based on the industry of the prospect and the title of the person, grading a call, the attention and momentums of the world who like are doing interesting stuff with transcripts, like RevOpsy stuff. So I think about like eventually you want GTM engineering or like kind of AI to like proliferate throughout other departments. And so I sort of see this as like, as I can read it anyway, like they're expanding beyond just let's send a bunch of cold emails at scale to like, how do we give other departments leverage? And the next one is this AE function.
Yep. Yeah. Well said. I think we're almost at time, but this was great, guys. I really had enjoyed. And Brendan, what a perfect one for you to be on with some of the topics that naturally came up this week. So
totally.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
We love having you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And until next week on the Vibe Scaling podcast or This Week in GTM, or Brendan, we originally were going to call this GTM PM, and Cailen nixed it. He said that it wasn't. And also it's kind of a mouthful a little bit. It doesn't really roll off the tongue as well. So like This Week in GTM is what we're calling kind of our call outs of 3 to 5 tweets that we're already texting each other throughout the week. So would love to have you on a future one of these. And keep sending us tweets as you see them come in too, because I know you have a good filter on these things. So really appreciate it.
Really appreciate you giving us a listen. Give us a subscribe, rating, review, follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Hope you enjoy it.